Good morning once again.
Good morning.
How is everybody today? You had fun last night? Yeah. Huh? You remember last night? That's the bigger question. Anyways, Ann just left the room, but I was going to thank her for inviting me, but more importantly, she sits on our board. There she is. Stay right there. Don't go bugging out. I do want to thank you publicly for all the work you do, not just putting on this conference, but she comes to the board meeting and she makes sure that there's a perspective of what's going on in the community and all the discussions that we make. She deserves a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Ann. All right. I want to make a few comments, and I got some thoughts and some things to talk about. But lately, in the last few weeks, the labor movement's been in the news a lot because there's been some important anniversaries. 5 years ago, we saw the passage of Act 10. A year ago was the attack on right to work and attacks on prevailing wages, constant attacks in between those anniversaries on workers, on all sorts of ways and forms, and anything you could almost think of as, the administration in Madison started to put forward an ultra-right-wing agenda and try to make it work in Wisconsin. So, when you look at the history of the labor movement, you can talk about the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, but you can also look at the last 5 years. And I think that there's an important transition that we have to make. One is, yes, history will judge us on what we did in Madison. History will judge us on what we did last year. But most importantly, for us, for now, for the future, history is going to judge us on where we go from here. It's not about what we've done. It's about what we need to do. And that's what I really want to focus on. Because the labor movement in Wisconsin, when you think about it, we're in a transition. And if you know anything or work in any organizations that deal with transitions are what? They're difficult. They're oftentimes painful. Because you're trying to navigate through, uncharted waters. You're trying to work with people, talk about change, talk about those sorts of things. And it's hard because people will resent it. People will push back on it. People won't want to change. So transition for an institution, organizationally, individually, is a very difficult thing. But I'm very proud of how people, how workers, how our affiliates, how our members, how you all are dealing with those challenges here in Wisconsin. So a few years ago, we started traveling the state saying, Act 10, we knew fights were coming on right to work. We talked about right to work readiness. We said, look, we're going to have to change how we view ourselves. Because it's not just about servicing members in the workplace any longer. It's about transitioning so that we do collective action. And then we provide a voice for workers through actions, through mobilizations, and through other means. Because we also learn the important thing that's not talked about what happened in Wisconsin is it was one of the first major battles that took on the right wing after Citizens United was passed. We didn't understand the amount of money, the amount of resources that would be coming into this state from out of the state. So we know that we have to change. We know we have to restructure because we're always going to be up against big money until, some major laws are changed. But we know we're up against major money. We know what we're up against. So what does that transition look like? So we went around, we started having a lot of discussions with people. And I'll just fast forward a little bit because based on discussions we had in all the sectors of the state, with many of you participating and others, we know that we need to have a structure that functions at a regional and local level because that is the only way we're going to be able to sustain an organization, sustain a movement, given the amount of money that we're up against. So what does that look like? So we started to talk among each other, and one of the things we realized when we went into communities is workers and unions in communities really didn't know each other. They really didn't understand each other. So we put something together that was called Solidarity Roundtables, which many of you have participated in. And if you haven't participated, you need to. because it was a chance and an opportunity for people to learn about what's going on in the different work sites, the challenges that are facing. And you know, we have challenges that are unique to the type of work we do, to the industries that we come from. But the more people talked about it, the more people heard from building trades about the challenges that they face, what's going on in the public sector in terms of bullying and intimidation, how trade and outsourcing affects industrial unions, the more people started to realize we have major things in common. The major things in common is we're under attack, there's downward pressure on us, they're basically trying to lower the wages, go to a low-wage economy, and we have a lot in common. And when you start talking and get to know each other, and you realize you have a lot in common, you start to appreciate that a little more, and that's really how you build solidarity. Solidarity is not just a battle cry, it's not just a song, it's not just a slogan, it's a group of relationships that start to understand each other and work together. And that is not to mean that you don't have disagreements. That doesn't mean that you're all going to agree forever on who should be endorsed for candidate, or who should get what work and what work site or whatever. There's always going to be disagreements. That's part of what we are. But the point is that there's a broader collective challenge and a broader collective reason for us all to come together. We need to come together on those things. That is solidarity, and that is something that we have to build and work at. It just doesn't happen automatically. So I'm happy to say that from those discussions, people started to realize this is a good thing. We like this. We like learning and getting to know each other and understanding each other better. So, we're going to continue to work on that. The second thing that we realized is what people really wanted to work on was local elections. In their communities, school boards, county boards, city boards. How do you do that? How do you build a type of accountability for elected officials when they come back to your districts? So we started talking about, first things we realized is we didn't even know who were on certain local boards. So we went about the process, and we now know, based on input and participation from all the people that have been active on this, we know region by region who are friends of labor, who are friends of Walker, and who we know nothing about. And so we're developing a strategy around that. And then finally, how do we grow this movement, both within the labor movement as well as outside the movement? So those became the 3 goals of our organization. It was develop these goals from the bottom up. It was all done in listening sessions and meetings in the various communities. As Ann alluded to, we traveled the state, coast to coast, up and down, everywhere else. So, the other thing that we've been doing is we've been building a tremendous list. And what I mean by a list is I don't know who gets our emails here, who gets our blog, who's on the various communication systems. But the Wisconsin State AFL-CIO has the largest social media network in the entire country. We lead all states, including states that have far more population. And we did that by making sure people sign up at events. And that gives us the opportunity to constantly give out information, to constantly educate people about the issues, about what's going on. And we think that that's been very successful. We need to take credit for some of the things that are going on, some of the changes that are happening. Just, look at the trade agreement, which was talked about yesterday. 5-6 years ago, who was the only voice in the wilderness raising concern about the trade agreements? Labor. Who was it? It was labor. It was you. It was us. We were out there. But we kept hammering on that. We kept talking about it. We kept little by little by little educating people on what the effects of plant closings were, of what the effects of layoffs were, of what the effects of downward pressure on our wages are, and importantly, how that happens to us. The entire middle class starts to go down, and little by little, people started to understand the issue. And what do you have today? You have all candidates talking about bad trade deals, the need for better wages. Right?
Right.
Right? That didn't just happen, brothers and sisters. That happened because we were part of educating about it. You can't point to one particular point, but it was a constant barraging and growing our networks and people talking to people and so on and so forth. So feel good about that. Take credit about that. Because that's the way that we need to go. That's how you organize. One person at a time, one fight at a time, and it all builds momentum. Recently, just in the last few months, you had the thing with the privatization of water. You look at the amount of response our network built across this state to lobby, to communicate with their legislators about why this is a really bad idea. Well, number one, we're the organization, the labor movement, that exposed the issue, and we're the one that took the lead on it, and we're the ones that killed it. You should feel good about that, right?
Right.
Those are victories. You know, everybody's, sometimes I think they forget about the things that we win. I was talking to some people last night, and they were talking, how hard it is and the struggle that they face because they go to doors and they face people that are, right-wing or disagree with them, or you're in an area that's controlled by the Tea Party. And you know what? The fact that you're there and doing that, that's a victory. That's a victory. The fact that you got other people coming together and joining in that, those are victories. That's how we build this thing. We should feel good about those victories. There's a saying that I really like. And that's the evolution of our politics is based on our life experiences. Now think about that statement. I mean, people have been getting screwed, right? Right?
Right.
I mean, our members are getting screwed, we're getting screwed. Things have not been going well for people. Wages are suppressed, the wealthy are getting wealthier. So all this discussion that you're seeing in our politics now, it just didn't happen. It's people responding to how bad things are going for them, the middle class, the declining middle class. So that's the energy that we're working with. That's sometimes what we've got to do is tap into that energy and continue to build for it. After we put the structure in place, we had a lot of discussions with people about, well, what are the issues that we're facing? Well, there were a lot of issues, I got to tell you. But it came down to two major categories. One was the economy, or economics. What's going on with our wages, with our benefits, with our weakened bargaining power? How do we get the rest of the middle class, the rest of the people out there to understand what's going on? And then, of course, looking at where is all the wealth in America going? People talk about America being the wealthiest nation in the world. It is, but all the wealth is focused, is congregated at the top 1 or 2%. So what's going on with all that? And how do we fight that? How do we start to get a fair division of the wealth again? The second area that people had a lot of concerns about, which was a very broad area, but basically it was about our rights. About our rights as Americans, about our rights as people in Wisconsin. And it plays down the various ways. Our rights in the workplace. Our rights in the workplace are being deteriorated, they're being attacked. And they're trying to do divide and conquer to make, us think among ourselves that it's not right. That one group has a privilege over another. Those aren't privileges, those are earned benefits. And we need to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to earn benefits. We look at the rights that are happening to our communities. Local control. Remember when Walker and Fitzgerald and these guys, when they ran, and it was all about local control, giving power to local communities? You remember that? Remember that? Well, since they've been elected, they've passed 99 pieces of legislation that take away local control. 99 pieces of legislation because they don't trust the citizens of Wisconsin. They don't trust the fact that, they'll start to pass referendums to raise the minimum wage. They can't have that happen. So they're passing more and more legislation to take the rights of local communities away. When you look at our democracy, these guys are running scared. That's the reason they're attacking. Understand the basis of their attacks is based on their fear. And there's a lot of history with this too. Because when you have a small group of wealthy people holding power, what do? What do? They try to find ways to sustain that power, right? And that's what you're seeing play out here in Wisconsin. We have the worst case of gerrymandering we've ever seen. Playing with the districts, it's being challenged in the courts. You see a voter ID legislation passed that basically is making it more and more difficult for people to vote. I mean, I just had a birthday. I know I'm a little bit older than a lot of you, but do we remember a time when the emphasis was on voter registration drives, getting people to vote, encouraging them to vote? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember those days? They weren't that long ago. Well, now it's the opposite. They do not want people to vote. Because if people vote, they're endangered, and they want to do everything they can to suppress that. So when you see the commercials and you see the attack ads, I mean, Joanne Kloppenberg is a class act. She's a wonderful lady. She has high ideals. And what are they doing? They're running a commercial that's basically what's known as a Willie Horton type commercial against her. And they're putting millions of dollars in it because they don't want people to vote. It's not that they're trying to say their candidate is better. They just want to discourage people from voting. That's what's going on through these political models. You know, there's out and out lies. You know, they say one thing, do another. You know, look no further than right to work. I mean, it was in the fall that Walker was saying he wasn't interested in right to work, and then early following the holidays, there he was, wanting and needing right to work. So that's a model known as bait and switch, and that's also aimed at, you know, undermining our rights and focusing on how they can control and stay in power. So, you know, those things, understanding the amount of money we're up against, understanding the out-of-state dollars that have come in to try to transition Wisconsin into the right-wing lab that it's become. Those are the reasons and exactly why we have to view our movement as a movement in transition into this new situation. You know, they've got the money. We've got to make sure that we continue on the path we're on to educate, to mobilize, and to organize. So we've developed this system called speaker bureaus, where people will be going from one workplace to another workplace, from one union meeting to another union meeting of different unions, and talking to them about the issues that they're facing. So you'll have building trades people talking to teachers, teachers talking to steelworkers, and on and on and on and on, to try to grow and drill down on understanding and relationships in our communities, because that's building solidarity. And after we do that as a movement, we're going to reach out to the community and do the same thing. We've analyzed different local races. We're engaged in 310 local races across the state of Wisconsin. 310. Many of them for the purposes of trying to flip control of these boards so that we have people that we can go out to. We're trying to organize and recruit people to be labor ambassadors. People that will go out and talk to these local politicians and state reps about what it means to be in a union, about what are our issues, and try to, you know, support those that support us, figure out how we deal with those that don't. But there's a lot of people out there that know nothing about the labor movement, and we have to talk to them. So those are the type of goals that we're going to be talking about. We just had we have staff in every region of the state. It's easy for you to connect with them, and you need to connect. You need to connect through the social networks we have, social media networks we have, and you need to connect with these people in the field, because that's how you can be active. That's how we're going to grow this thing. You know, the old saying of politics is not a spectator sport is absolutely correct. So brothers and sisters, as we kick off another year, as we turn the corner on 5 years after Act 10, 1 year after right to work and prevailing wage spikes, it's time to look forward. It's time to look to the fall of 2016 and look beyond into the future. So we've done a lot of great work. We've laid the groundwork, put in the hours, and done the hard work that needs to be done in the face of all the political attacks that we've seen. But we can't slow down, and we can't give in. We wake up every day. We commit ourselves to keep our eye on the prize, representing our members in the work site, in our communities, promoting a system of collective bargaining and action to protect and promote our values, the values of our members, the values of working. Our rights have been and continue to come under attack. Our democracy, our economy, we all understand what's at stake. We have committed ourselves to transitioning the labor movement with a greater emphasis on education of issues, keeping an eye on the goal of providing a voice for working families despite an agenda from Wall Street to weaken unions, lower wages, and reduce regulation. Wall Street wants to pave the way for the wealthy elite to control even more of the income gains, to expand upon their already massive wealth, the greed of corporate billionaires who control and influence so much of our economy and now control so much of our political system seems to never be satisfied. We have local elections and we have the opportunity to elect pro-labor politicians in our local communities. We have to look at how we do get people elected and hold them accountable at all levels of government. We have the continued goal of building solidarity and solidifying our ranks into one strong, unified labor movement. That is our goal, right? Right. Yes, we have an array of specific and industry issues and challenges that pop up. We have strikes, contract negotiations, job loss, and economic downturns that always are demanding our response. And I want to take a second to thank everybody in this room for the support that we showed the coal workers last fall. Right? When we put the word out to support those workers, we looked at that issue and everybody understood what was going on because it's the same challenges we're all facing. Corporations, CEOs, owners, billionaires, suppressing the wages of those that are showing up to work every day to make them richer. We understand that fight. That's what this movement's based on. That's what we're facing every day. So there was an outpouring of solidarity and support for those workers that poured in from all corners of the state and beyond. It was a wonderful sight to see. Wonderful sight to see. And that strike was successful by all accounts. That's the kind of thing that is labor history. That's the kind of thing that we continue to build on. So, we face many obstacles. But let's be clear. When you really think about it and take a step back, we are making progress. We have come together like never before in solidarity and unity. We have taken the time to sit together at solidarity roundtables to discuss, learn, and dissect problems different unions locally face, which help us build that understanding and strength at the grassroots level that's going to be so important to the future of the labor movement. It is time to look forward, to move forward together, to continue our path towards social and economic justice for everybody in our communities. We've taken the time to educate and train our members in the Every Member in Organizing training program, which helps build capacity in organizing, political campaigns, and communities. We have built our networks and our channels, expanding our reach on new forms of social media and online organizing. None of this has been easy. None of this is easy. But it is all necessary. So now is the time to build on our efforts and take them into 2016 and beyond. We have to elect Russ Feingold back to the U.S. Senate and get rid of Ron Johnson, who has taken some of the most extreme votes. Right? Let's go. We need to elect a pro-worker, pro-union, pro-middle-class job creation president who will put working families first and grow the economy from the middle out. I want you to think about that. The strategy has to be to grow the economy from the middle out. We need to make gains in the state legislature and have our eye on long-term goals to ensure balance in our state legislature. And we need to elect Joe Kloppenberg to the Supreme Court. We understand and I can't overemphasize the value of the courts. Years ago you talk about a race to the court and people's eyes would kind of glass over. But we've seen in action what happens when the other side owns the courts, and they have tried to buy and they have been successful to buy the courts at certain levels. This is our opportunity to put a stop to that. And of course, we need to start preparing today to unseat Scott Walker in 2018. are facing a different economy than ever before. Income inequality is rising. Good jobs are fleeing to China or elsewhere. The rich are getting richer, but the rest of us are waking up. Working families have done their part to chip in and sacrifice when things are bad to save our employers, to save our companies, to keep jobs in America, to keep jobs in our communities. But even when we do that, that is often not enough. And that is wrong. Corporate profits are up. It's time for working people to share in the gains. And that's the kind of leadership we've got to look at when we talk about the White House, Congress, and the State House, is somebody who understands that fact. The rules of our economy have been manipulated. It's up to us to come together through unions to put a check on corporate power and greed. It's up to us as unions to speak out to save those jobs from being shipped overseas. So listen, here's the thing. Attitudes are changing. The word union isn't as negative as it used to be. Right? Right. I mean, there's actually a national debate going on now about the value of unions. You have a Gallup poll coming out saying the attitude of America is shifting. They're understanding the value of unions, what the effect of a good, strong union movement has on the middle class. It's there. It's in the national discussion. That's another thing you need to understand, is that doesn't just happen. That happens because of countless communications and meetings and discussions and newspaper articles and demonstrations and mobilizations and on and on and on. People are understanding the value of unions, the role that it plays to a better economy for everybody, a more balanced economy, a stronger democracy. There's energy in the movement for union rights. People are starting to come on side. United, we can move forward together to capture this enthusiasm at this moment in time. But it's also up to us to figure out how we grow our movement given this changing environment, given the successes that we've had and the momentum we're working to create. How do we grow our movement? That's an answer that each and every one of us have to look within ourselves, within our hearts, within our souls, and figure out how we do that. It's up to union members to take a stand for a better economy, to fight for the middle class. It's our duty. It's our job. We stand together to make workplaces safer, to help workers get better wages, to ensure work-life balance. We stand together to make lives better for those who labor, and we will never, ever apologize. We will never give up. We will never give in. We will move forward in solidarity together to build a better future for our members, for our children, and our communities. Thank you, and solidarity.
You mentioned it today, and it was mentioned yesterday too, this poll, you said was a Gallup poll, is there, do you know where we can get that or access that?
Is it true?
Huh?
You could probably
Just go Gallup.
Google Gallup.
Google.
Okay.
I'm guessing. If not, call
Okay,
me.
so somebody who's all beamed up, can you do that?
But otherwise, call
Because if you
somehow.
write something or do whatever, they always want you to cite your information.
Yeah.
I will look that up and
Okay,
we'll
thank you.
find it. Give me a pen.
Jerry?
You talked about some of these ads and how they're just chopped up garbage. I know in Milwaukee the ads that have been ran against Chris Abele are just horrific, and I just seen a crap ad against Lautenberg. Is there any way to counter that? Is there any like communication team that wants to counter that and show people what garbage that is? I mean, some way to show people, for us to communicate to the people and to the public just how much they're being deceived. Is there any plan or any thought?
Well, of course there's a lot of thought about it, but let's just back up a second. That's a political model. And it's a political model that has worked for them, which is why they do it. That's called voter suppression. If you feel threatened or you feel like you're behind, you have to go what they call negative on your opponent. But now it seems like in today's society, there's no limits. They just, it's name calling, If there's 1% of truth, they'll make up a story where the other 99% is bullshit. They'll say, they'll say one thing and then they'll do another shortly after elected office. That's a model that's been working for them. We've seen it work over and over for Scott Walker. But I think the solution to that is not an easy one. It's one that we're trying to train people through the Every Member and Organizer training. It's how we all talk about it. But that's the whole purpose of organizing, because to counter that sort of stuff, we have to have a system in place in the state where we are talking to each other, where we are communicating, where we use social media. When we get a chance to get in the media to try to set the record straight, we'll do that. We will never have the money the other side has. Just forget about it. We have to use these other systems and ways to do it. So there's no quick answer. I think the best answer and solution to that is when they continue to do that, and it starts working against them, then they will stop. So with the way the laws are, the corporations have the same rights as individuals. With the way the laws are, corporations, billionaires not only have the luxury of tapping into their billions, corporations, because they now have the same rights as people, they can use their corporate dollars. So, you give them the ability to create lies and put a lot of money behind it, and that's what their model is. So we have to use our way of countering that. So that's, at least until somebody can point to some magic bullet, But I think it's just a matter of continuing to do what we're doing. Look at Scott Walker's polling. They put a lot of money in this guy. And his polling's at like an all-time low of like 38% approval rating. That's the result of people continuing to organize, social media, people understanding more and more of what it's about. So.
I had a question. You had talked about getting ready for Walker in 2018. Are there any interested candidates that are thinking of running against him?
Run, Bill, run.
You have my vote.
Today I'd like to announce my I think there's a lot of interested candidates. I think what will happen is, people will keep their powder dry. You won't see a lot of discussion about it with the presidential and the Senate race looking in the fall of this year. That's going to be the focus. I would highly suspect that after that presidential race is over, probably within a day or two, you'll start to see people have their names put forward. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's usually the way it works.
Kind of on a follow-up on that, I know 4 years ago there were different groups that kind of went around the state and tried to get people's opinions on who they thought would be good candidates from different areas. Is there any talk about doing anything like that again?
Not at the moment, but I think there will be. I really, you have the party, you have other organizations working to try to do candidate recruitment, and so that'll happen. It's happening now for state senate and state assembly for this year, but once again, looking at 16. When I talk about 16 and beyond, that governor's race is like a prize, right? But what we have to do is view the work that we're doing this year. So all the organizing we're doing in political races this spring, in the fall, all the work we're doing to communicate people about the agenda. And then next year in 2017, there will be new legislative sessions. We will have the opportunity to put forward an agenda about how to promote wages, take our rights back, an agenda that we need, that we can organize around and continue to build. But every step of the way, we want to build on this transition. We want to build on our networks and build our powers so that when it comes time to focus on 2018, we have a stronger, more vibrant movement to take a push on putting somebody in office that we feel will make a difference for us. And that's, I think, the point we're at, is we're looking at how do we build towards that. And I think a discussion about who that person will be will happen after the fall elections.
Is there any seats in Madison now that are up for election this year?
I'm sorry, what?
Any seats in Madison that are up for election this year?
Yeah, all the assembly seats, half of the Senate seats. There's a tremendous amount of them. communication will be going out on that. Discussions will be happening this spring about who to endorse for Madison for the various races. And, we're hoping, when you talk about the State House, now they've gerrymandered these districts terribly. I mean, but we're hoping that, in some areas with people waking up and understanding what's going on, that we can start to gain some seats this year. And, once again, building for 16 and beyond. So, but you should, I'm not sure what union you're from, but we can get you the information on the political targets and stuff like that too.
Anything else?
All right.